Where do you go from here? Where do you go from here? I am truly scared that if this team does try to cut payroll, we're gonna trade Karl-Anthony Towns. And the thing is I have said this many times. Karl-Anthony Towns was supposed to be at the same level as Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid, and that has not happened. All right, people don't realize Karl-Anthony Towns should be like a perennial MVP candidate. We should be talking about Karl-Anthony Towns in the same breath as Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, and that hasn't happened. I understand that, but we want to recuperate the assets and rebuild the cupboard in terms of trade assets and to avoid the aprons in the new CBA. Trading Karl-Anthony Towns is the most logistical way of doing that. But my whole thing is, I don't think there's a trade out there that gives us a player that or players of equal value. I think any trade that we trade Karl-Anthony Towns for, we lose. And that's the thing. We have 56 and 26. We're the best defense, arguably, in the league. We have the 27th pick and the 37th pick. I believe we go after a guy like a Josh Hart, and then we go after a point guard, either like a Reese Beekman, a Juan Yunez. I could see us going after like an Enrique A. Freeman. I think we go for pro-ready guys who are going to contribute day one. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go for like Cam Spencer. Kyle Anderson, Jordan McLaughlin, Monte Morris, TJ Warren, and Daishen Nix are all unrestricted free agents. Luka Garza is only restricted free agent. So I expect Luka Garza to come back. We're a big fan of his. So losing game 5 is obviously not what they wanted, but it was the second most wins in franchise history, and they reached the conference finals for the first time since 2004. Sixth man of the year, Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker are going to come back. So you got that. They're bringing back the same starting 5. You got MVP candidate there. You got the best defender, Jaden McDaniels. Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert look great. So whatever happens with the ownership will be figured out. But the Timberwolves are projected to exceed $200 million in salary, the largest in franchise history, and are expected to pay the largest tax for the only second time in 2007 since 2007. In 2008, the penalty is expected to exceed $75 million. They're one of 3 teams, Denver and Phoenix, to have 3 players on max contracts. Minnesota is also in the second apron and is restricted in how it can address the roster outside of retaining its own free agents and 2 draft picks. The cost justifies the product on the court. Considering Minnesota ranked first in defensive efficiency and its starting 5 was plus 9.5 points per 100 possessions this season. The Timberwolves will be returning 10 players from the roster, including 7 who are 26 or younger. Even in the scenario that Minnesota wanted to make a roster change, trading the $221 million owed to Towns, for an example, is extremely difficult under the current CBA. His $49.4 million salary next season is one of the largest in the NBA and would trigger the first apron hard cap for teams looking to acquire the forward. Towns obviously was benched in the Game 2 loss to Dallas as he had a horrendous performance, and one executive told ESPN only dysfunctional ownership can break up this team. So as we said, we expect them to stick it together, and Minnesota can get away with playing an 8-man rotation in the playoffs, but they're going to have to, like I said earlier in the video, Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kyle Anderson was their rotation behind Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert, and Karl-Anthony Towns. They need like a Malik Monk, and they have to address it. No offense, Wendell Moore, Leonard Miller, and Josh Minott are probably not going to be those guys. Those guys only played 219 minutes this season combined. They do have 2 draft picks. They've got the bird rights on Anderson, Morris, and McLaughlin, and the Timberwolves are allowed to exceed the luxury tax and apron to re-sign each, but it would pay a significant financial penalty if the contract is more than the veteran minimum. Anderson saw his minutes decrease in the playoffs, and he was productive, but, I just think I think they could get him back cheap. Look, if we look at the free agents, I think Kevin McCullough's probably not going to be there, but in the second round, a Cam Spencer or Reese Beekman is somebody that they can go after. I think in the first round, a Carlton Carrington I just think might be too young, but Dylan Jones could really be a guy that they could want to bring in my opinion, if I had to assume. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting one because I don't think they have a chance to be good for a while, and I think they're just trying not to flub it up. And I wouldn't want to flub it up either because this team can be great. Seriously, they can be so good. It's not even funny. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What else do you guys think needs to happen with the Minnesota Timberwolves this offseason? You just have Anthony Edwards and the squad. They're just looking so good. But they're going to have to go with the minimum contracts. They're not bringing back Malik Beasley. Russell Westbrook isn't walking through that door, nor is Tyus Jones. Maybe they can get a Gary Trent or Spencer Dinwiddie, but is that really going to put over? I don't know. I'm curious because we need a backup point guard. And that's why I kept saying those guys in the second round. I think we can get a backup point guard in the second round, like through a Tyler Kolek, or we can get a Tyler Kolek at the end of the first. Wing depth, Dylan Jones, Jalen Tyson, those are positions that can be addressed. But, a shot creator off the bench, a Malik Monk, there's just no one there unless they want to go out and get an Isaiah Joe somehow. An Eric Gordon would be cool. It's going to be interesting. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. If you were the Minnesota Timberwolves, what would you guys do and why? I just think it is an interesting situation. It's one that I want to say it's different than years past because the way the team is structured, like we talked about earlier, money. We're stuck with the same team. We can't really change. And I wonder if that's going to be enough or is it going to be too little? But I want to hear your guys' thoughts. I feel like as a Timberwolves fan myself, I think we can overcome this to the point where I'm not necessarily afraid. I think Anthony Edwards is going to the next level. My biggest fear right here is Karl-Anthony Towns might need to be we have Reid, who's great at creating his own shot. Nickeil Alexander's nice, but we need a guard. Like, if we could bring in Tyus Jones as our backup point guard, that'd be great. Russell Westbrook, in theory, would be great. But it's probably not going to happen. And I know that. But it's just frustrating to think that the answer could be a lot easier than what it seems, but it won't happen just because somebody doesn't want it. And I know that's just like how life is, but it's just frustrating that that's the result when we have the chance. It's just, will a player take a pay cut to come here? I just don't. My whole frustration is how they're stuck with this team. Okay, they bring back Kyle Anderson, Jordan McLaughlin, and I'm blanking on the third guy, Jordan McLaughlin, Kyle Anderson, and whoever the third guy is, but on veteran deals, and you still have the problem of Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker being your backup. That's cool and everything, but we don't have that Norman Powell, Malik Monk it's not even that it needs to be a guard. It's the sense that because Nickeil Alexander-Walker can score like that, and he looked like that during the playoffs. We need a Tyus Jones. We need a guy who can a Chris Paul. Okay, can Chris Paul come in here? Maybe.